Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe that most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to find great capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way to exit your highly appreciated assets tax deferred so you can grow your wealth. I'm your co-host, Pearson York, filling in for Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best wealth, business, real estate, and leadership individuals in the world, where we share ideas, deal stories, and inspirations so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're streaming on Expert Secrets CRE podcast, Capital Gains Tax Solutions YouTube channel, Kingdom Luxury YouTube channel, and Kingdom Luxury Realty Facebook page. And I'm very excited about our next guest. This gentleman has been a residential real estate appraiser in this crazy housing market since 2003. He also does tech appraisals and teaches on tech appraisals and the housing market trends in the current area. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Ryan Lundquist, and very excited to have you on the show. So Ryan, how you doing?
Hey everyone, good.
Did I butcher your name?
Yeah, it's Lundquist, but I
Lundquist.
wasn't going to correct you. It doesn't matter.
I'll call myself out. I'm sorry for that. It's sometimes I just don't do it justice. So I'm sorry about that.
I'm not offended, not in the least.
So, Ryan, before we kind of dive into all the cool stuff we're going to get into, tell us a little bit about your story and how you kind of got to where you are today.
Well, like most people in real estate, it's like you get in by accident or because you know people who are working in real estate. And so in a former life, I used to be a teacher, and my wife got pregnant, and I needed to find a new gig that made a little more than my private teacher salary. And I knew some appraisers. And so they trained me, and here I am today. It's been almost 20 years, and I'm enjoying it. I do appraisals all day, but I really study the market. I think that's my big thing. I'm also a housing analyst, and so that's what I love to do.
Awesome. And I'm really excited to dive into that because I have a ton of questions just for myself on how you're doing, what you're doing. But before we do that, I want to kind of take you back a little bit and just touch on. I believe that everyone's given a certain set of strengths or gifts from the Lord or superpowers, whatever you want to call them. But a couple of things that help make them successful and give them that kind of like competitive advantage. And I want to dive into what you think your, spiritual gifts or superpowers are that have brought you to where you are today.
That's a good question. And it's funny that you ask, because I have not been asked a question like this forever. And so it seemed like growing up in church, it was always like, hey, what are your gifts? And, taking the tests and all that. But, I'm a teacher at heart, though. I think when I first began appraising, I thought that, that portion of my life was over. Little did I know that I would be out there constantly talking and educating. And so I think that's one of my huge strengths. But I think diplomacy is really big. I love people. I'm very personable. Definitely helps me in this people profession just to build relationships with others. And then I have an eye for analysis. That certainly helps me. I'm not like I don't go to bed dreaming about numbers, but I love the story of it all. And so just being fascinated with stories, I think is helpful for what I do.
So being able to basically analyze a situation and create a narrative around that situation, and then be able to communicate that narrative in a way that others can actually understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of room for creativity, and nobody wants to just hear dry numbers in a presentation.
Right.
How can we unpack this? How can we understand it? That's where, I just think it takes maybe skill and creativity to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's definitely a superpower, because I mean, it's almost like you're presenting a vision or something like that, like with every with every story. And it's like, hey, this is how this got here, and this is why this happened.
Yeah.
And to be able to communicate that, I think, is an absolute superpower. So that's amazing. So that makes a lot of sense. And so now, how are you using that superpower right in today? So, right, I think we can both agree the market is crazy, right? And so how are you conveying that story of like what has happened and what has actually transpired, and to justify, some, it's almost kind of like 2004, 5, and 6 again, it feels like sometimes, with some of these appraisals and stuff that are coming in. Like, how are you doing that, and what are you seeing out there right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, in my mind, the market is a saga. It's always moving, and the layers of the market are changing. And so we just ask, what is it that's moving this market? And right now, one of the big things is that buyers have been running to the market. We've had a
Yeah.
substantial increase in mortgage rates. They were about 3% 1 year ago, and now they're about 4%. And so a huge change in a very short period of time. But ironically, it's not making any difference in slowing down the market right now just because buyers are rushing the market. And so
Yeah.
here we are in our 11th year of price growth, which is really atypical. This is a long market cycle, but it's not just in our 11th year. We're experiencing about the most growth that we've seen within this year. And so that's, I think, the baffling part. And that's where I think, so some people draw parallels and go, gosh, this feels like 2004 and
Yeah.
2005. There's so many differences, I think, but I get the sense of, yeah, hey, prices are higher. And some people are looking and going, can I afford the market? And everyone wants to know the future. And I just say, like, well, predict for me who's going to be president in 2 years, without having a crazy political conversation. It's just,
Yeah.
that's hard. No one predicted the market that we're in right now. And so I don't know. It just seems like real estate should be so easy to predict, but here we are in this surprising market, right?
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you this. Do you think that there is, um, like, with all the changes that have happened in, the last couple of years and whatnot, and like where real estate is and where it's going, and what we've learned from like 2000 and like, 4, 5, 6, all the way up through like that great recession, right? Have the cycles changed? Like, are we in a new like pattern of cycle now?
Well, I would say that often, especially in California and in Sacramento, you see prices go up for 7, 8 years or so, and so I would say, yeah, we're in a definite new pattern in terms of the markets going on longer, and markets go up and down. That's the most natural thing in the
Right.
world, but so I'd say, yeah, I mean, in that regard, and one of the things about this market is that people are being scrutinized, and it's not easy to get a loan, and so there's that very healthy aspect. But I think one of the really big problems right now is we have such anemic housing supply. And so, like in my
Yeah.
market in Sacramento, for 20 months in a row, we've had less than 1 month of supply. And so that means if nothing else came to the market, all the listings would be gone in 1 month. And technically, that's about 3 weeks. And so it's even less. And so it's so freakishly abnormal to have numbers like this. And so I think we sort of hit this place in real estate where we're really flirting with low supply. And some of that is due to COVID, sellers not selling as much, but you have all this distressed inventory that's gone and investors bought it, investment funds purchasing properties, and you have, over 10 years of people with, 4% and lower mortgage rates who
Right.
have less incentive to sell. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons that have created this environment, but I think it's a unique position in time where there's a lot of upward pressure despite where prices are at. And, we look and go, can this continue? Is it sustainable? And, I certainly hope it slows down at some point. I think it needs to be healthy, but we have this challenge of this position of not enough new construction and all those other reasons I listed that have put us in this low inventory environment. And that just, it's dangerous, or not, maybe not dangerous, but it's precarious, and then it just creates so much pressure up. And so that's the unfortunate reality, I think, of where we're at today.
So your position is that the events that have kind of unfolded due in this like complete lack of new inventory that we have not put into the market that we should have been putting in is created this super low supply. And because of that, it's just a simple supply and demand curve that's really causing the upward pressure on the market.
There's that, and there is a supply issue, all those reasons I mentioned, but people also staying in their homes longer. Redfin has research that shows people are staying in their homes 3 years longer. Homes have been larger through the years, and so they're more suitable for people to live. Birth or the people getting married later. Like, there's a lot of reasons I think with demographics why people can stay longer, and so that's part of it. But I think the artificial part is that the market was legitimately slowing down, but then it was supercharged during the pandemic. As soon as
Yeah.
mortgage rates went below 3%, I think we hit this inflection point with demand where it created this crazy rush on the market, and we're still in the midst of that. And so I don't think the market ever would have gone where it went these past 2 years, or almost 2 years, had mortgage rates not done that. And so I think on the demand side, yeah, I mean that the demand isn't just about demographics in my mind. Like, some people are like, it's just with changes in society. Okay, I get that, but then I look at my graphs and go, we went below 1 month of housing supply as soon as mortgage rates went 3% and below, and we haven't recovered since that time. And so I can't ignore that. That has a lot to do with
Yeah.
helping to create the market that we've had.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying that people are buying payments at this point.
For sure, yeah, and some people are. I think they're married to their payment also, and they're looking and going, well, I have a 2.65% mortgage rate. Like, I'm good. No
Yeah.
reason for me to move, or hey, I'm locked in at 3.5%, and here's what it would cost to replace. Like, no, I'm cool, and maybe I'll do a cash out refi, and maybe I'll do some remodeling or build a pool or have that
Yeah.
accessory dwelling, and so. Yeah, the payment is huge, and I think that's on a lot of people's minds.
So let's use your superpower here for a second, and let's dive in, and let's give me some narratives of like where you see this going, right? Give me a. I'm not asking you to predict the future, but I'm asking you to predict the future here, I guess.
I was
Like,
gonna say, but
but like, so where do you see it going? Like, I mean, after analyzing all of the data that you've analyzed, right? You've seen, you've put this together, right? Where do you see it going? Like, what are a couple scenarios you can see? Like, hey, this is a pretty good likely scenario to play out. This is maybe another possible likelihood. Tell me what you're thinking.
well, first, I'll say my crystal ball is broken, and I
Yeah,
just
of
want to
course.
remind everyone that literally, I don't think anybody predicted the market that we're in right now. I'll say, for the time being, it's a safe bet to say that there's profound upward pressure for prices to increase. But affordability is declining, and so at some point we have to hit an inflection point. And so this sort of fear of missing out mentality,
Mhm.
rushing the market, at some point that has to affect demand out there. We haven't reached that yet, but at some point we have to see somewhat the market maybe change temperature. But I mean, here's the thing: whenever the market corrects in the future, we just have to remember that not all corrections are the same.
Mhm.
And we look back, I think a lot of people look at 2005 to 2007 and think we're about ready to totally collapse like that. But you know that the collapse or the downtrend, then it wasn't the same one in the 90s, where in my market prices easily dipped by about 15% in the 90s, but then they dipped over 50% in the mid 2000s. And so I
Right.
just think it's a good reminder that I could prophesy into the future and say, hey, at some point the market's going to do something else rather than go up exponentially, because that's the most normal thing in the world. But I think it's a total guess to say, well, prices would, maybe go down by 10 or 15%. I don't think anyone has any data or, stats to support something like that. And frankly, we're in such a weird time, and so I wish I had a better answer that was more specific, but I think that's the most honest thing that I
Yeah.
can say, is that, I could, talk for an hour literally about current trends and what's driving this market and just the insanity of where stats are at right now and just how aggressive it is. But, you know, 2, 3, 5 years from now, people ask me all the time, "Hey, what's the market going to do?" And I'd say, "Well, who's going to win the Super Bowl in 5 years? Or who's going to be
Yeah.
the president after the next president?" I think those are very difficult things to predict.
Not financial advice, people. Not financial advice. So, yeah. Okay. So let's get into this tech this tech appraisal concept. So unpack that for me.
So I think maybe you saw that on my LinkedIn bio. Is that where that
Yeah.
was?
Yeah.
I don't know what I wrote there, but for a bit, I know with appraisals, I was during the beginning of the pandemic starting to do appraisals, with people walking through with an iPhone or
Yeah.
different video capabilities, and sort of them being my eyes and me just being at my desk, and or being out in the front of the house and then saying, "Now walk out of your house because I want proof that you're actually there."
Right. Right.
So they're not walking through some mansion when that's not what I'm seeing. But so I think maybe that's what was there. But I mean, really, there's this push in the appraisal space to have sort of a product like that. Honestly, I really didn't like it. Um,
Yeah.
and so not only was I dizzy the whole time when, felt nauseous after people, shaking the
Yeah.
camera, but I like to be in control of the process where possible. So I'm not planning on, delving into that sort of thing, even if the profession changes that way. And so as of now, anyway, that's what I say.
So that had really nothing to do with, because what I was thinking was like you were using like algorithms like a Zillow to comp your properties and come up with like values and whatnot. And I wanted to dive into that whole like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
Zillow's
no,
like going
no,
down. How are you doing
no,
that?
no,
So
nothing like that. I mean, I'm always making pretty graphs and looking at, trend lines, and that's really, really important to me. And so, when I sort of dissect the market for each appraisal report, I have, usually scatter graphs or whatever types of graphs where, I'm dissecting the market in many ways to look at it visually. And so, that's huge. That's one of the first things I do whenever I look at an appraisal, a neighborhood. I'm dropping in and going, let me see it visually first. I
yep.
can't imagine ever going back to a time when I wouldn't be doing that. I would feel very naked in an evaluation if I'm not like working with Excel.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you really, as an appraiser, you really need to be boots on the ground, and you can't just comp out something based on an algorithm. You got to be there. You got to go look at the property. You got to go see the area. You got to go see what kind of conditions, and you got to go do all that kind of stuff in order to come up with the actual true value. Is that fair?
I think that's the ideal. There is a place for not inspecting a property, but again, I mean, from if a lender's involved, it all comes down to risk. If there's
Yeah.
an extremely low, loan to value, then maybe an appraiser doing a desktop appraisal or a drive-by, maybe that will suffice. If it's like, 100% financed and condition really matters, and yeah, an appraiser or human needs to get out there and see the place. But for most of my stuff that's going to court and I might be testifying, like, yeah, I want to see it in person where possible. Sometimes I'm not allowed to because of gnarly situations and people won't let me in, and that's life. But it's definitely ideal if you're going to value something to actually see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So I want to get into the lightning round. I want to be respectful of your time here. So we got about 4 minutes until the half hour there. Is there anything else you wanted to cover on here since we're talking? Is there anything I missed or I should have asked that I didn't?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed in work here, just juggling, and so
Yeah.
hopefully I'm intelligible, right now. And so, but no, I think we're talking shop. I mean, I don't know that your viewers want specific Sacramento stats, but I have those for a mile.
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's a question. Has your appraisal methodology changed at all with the changing like pandemic and how things have gone? Are you looking at different things? Like is a home office, for example, like more valuable now than it was pre-pandemic
You
or
know,
something like that?
yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm glad you asked. And I will say that yes, what people want, they want the home office, they want the accessory dwelling, and they want the built in pool and a pristine home that's upgraded. And so I think all of those things, there's a real price premium for those in the
Yeah.
market right now. And so people are really paying top dollar for that stuff. And so yes, absolutely. I'm paying more attention to. One of the things that have changed is that I've got to be really careful about sort of putting statements on the market, going, well, the market can only go up this much,
Yeah.
because I think we've been seeing unprecedented appreciation for the past year and a half in particular. And so I've got to go and have a really open mind. And I know sometimes appraisers get into, I think valuation trouble when they're like, well, the market can go up 1% per month, but then, it's like last month, the median price went up 5.5% in my
Yeah.
market. And that doesn't mean that values actually went up by that much, but it's just a good reminder to sort of suspend judgment and to be like, you know what happened in the past isn't the new template for today. I've got to look at today and make sure that I'm really reflecting the market, even if it looks crazy on paper, even if I'm looking and going, is that really what people are willing to pay? Not just one example, but
Yeah.
look, there's 5 different ones. And so sometimes I look and go, I'm really surprised, but I can't argue against it. And so sometimes my adjustments to how the market's changed in recent months, sometimes they're really lofty right now, bigger than I've ever given before.
Yeah. So has your if you're so let's say you're trying to like comp out a property, right? And let's say you're gonna maybe do like a flip or something on this property. Adding certain things would that are really important would be the ADUs, the home office, and potentially like a pool, and those types of things. Can you kind of like take that and be like, okay, I know I'm going to add these features or whatever, so now that's going to bump it up even more than I would? And can you basically take that and kind of push your ARV a little bit more than that, like surrounding comps, or how would that work?
It's tough because ARV is going to be based on, let's find similar properties. What are they selling for? Then the investor needs to look at it and go, okay, what do we need to do to the house? Let's not do anything more. But say like a 1,000 square foot accessory dwelling, that could cost $200,000, and because it's so expensive to build right now, and I doubt a buyer is going to come along and pay that. And so I think it'd be a mistake to add an ADU unless you have capabilities of producing that at a really really low cost, or it's some high dollar home where buyers are going
Right.
to pay more. Mistake probably to add a pool unless it's in multi-million dollar neighborhood where buyers expect a pool. And so I just say look to the comps in the neighborhood that tell the story of value. And so sometimes an investor looks and goes, hey, I would love to dial in the backyard, but it looks like the market in this starter neighborhood doesn't distinguish. So why am I going to pour that brand new concrete patio when the highest sales in the neighborhood have an unkempt rear yard, or they're just dirt? And so I think that in each neighborhood we have to do that, have to look to the market and go, what is the market willing to do in this price range, in this zip code, or in this little patch of houses? And so so there isn't a one size fits all answer, which I think
Of
is
course.
cool.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons why I think real estate professionals with expertise are important.
Yeah, definitely. So what about like bedroom, bathrooms? Have those changed in value at all when you're like comping these properties out? Like if one property's, one bedroom down, you know, um, is that hurting it more than it would? Or
You know, so I haven't seen a big difference during the pandemic anyway, but I'll say that yeah, I mean it's a problem if I have a 5 bedroom house and then I'm comparing it to other 2 bedrooms, like that's apples and oranges. I
right,
need to go find other apples, absolutely. But I think sometimes in real estate though, we hype up the difference in a bedroom count, between 4 bedrooms and 5 bedrooms. And I mean, honestly, sometimes there's no real difference. Buyers are looking at the square footage and, maybe they love the layout better of the 4 bedroom house. And so it's a mistake to be like, well, the adjustment for a bedroom is always $20,000. And it's like, well, but that's not going to make sense in every neighborhood and price range. I guarantee the difference between a 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom is probably way more than that. And so I think when we bring arbitrary adjustments to the equation and expect them to work, in every situation, it can be a real mistake and it gets us into trouble then.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I want to get into the lightning round really quick. I'm just going to fire out a
Sure.
couple of things. And but before I do, I got to ask you one more question. Um, what is the biggest frustration that you have seen with people in your entire real estate career as it pertains to deferring capital gains tax and like the 1031?
Biggest frustration, huh?
Biggest
Um,
frustration.
Well, that's a hard question because I'm not often the recipient of that gripe. I will say I do a lot of estate work. About half my work deals with, people who inherit properties and they're trying to
Mhm.
figure out what to do with them, and so I don't really have a great answer for that. I would concur though with I think what you said in the beginning that people have to have a strategy. Put that property in a trust, don't let it go to probate.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say that. There's a lot of time and heartache involved in trying to deal with that when a loved one passes away. But
Right.
I just see that though we are in a market where people are moving money. I see a lot more 1031 exchanges in today's market. In an up market, basically, people move money. And so people move money into Sacramento, people moving out of Sacramento or out of California into other states. And so it's a very, very real thing. If you do 1031 exchanges, I just statistically, it's what I see in my market. They
Of
increase
course.
when a market is up, and then they subside when a market's down.
Right, right. Okay. Well, so we have a really unique tax deferral strategy that allows people to um, sell an asset, any sort of asset. It could be stocks, bonds, it could be business, it could be real estate, it could be primary home, it could be in Bitcoin, whatever, and then put it into diversified assets, including stocks, bonds, businesses, real estate, whatever. It doesn't have the light kind. It's called a deferred sales trust, and you guys can learn more about that at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And we have a mastermind group every Friday at 10 a.m. If you guys want that, you can find that at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. So let's get into the lightning round, Ryan, and I'll definitely throw this out there. So, what is your favorite leadership quote?
Oh gosh. I like I don't know who said it, but if not you, then who? And
If not
so
you,
just
then
that
who?
idea of just going for it. You don't have to wait, get permission, just do it.
Definitely, definitely. What's your favorite book?
Um, honestly, I don't have a favorite book. I could probably invent one. I'll say I'm not a huge reader.
Mhm.
On a non-business standpoint, though, I did read Dave Grohl's new book called The Storyteller. He's a
Mhm.
lead singer of the Foo Fighters, and that book was so awesome. And so I read that very recently. I'm in love with that book.
The
Nothing to do with
storyteller.
leadership or anything. Oh yeah, phenomenal.
Interesting, interesting. Okay. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm curious about I think the metaverse and
Mhm.
especially in terms of like valuations and such. I'm fascinated that people are buying $10,000 digital lots. And so I'm having a lot of conversations with the guy I met on Instagram about that. So I'm completely fascinated. And I will say on a different note, I'm fascinated by Trona, California. I just visited there. There's some $20,000 homes in that community, and it's been the recipient of I think a lot of economic downturn and earthquakes. And there's
Yeah.
reasons why prices are so low, but lately over the past few weeks I've really been fascinated with that to the point where I had to go visit and check it out.
Interesting, interesting. We'll have to get you on another podcast to dive into that metaverse appraisal concept
Yeah,
because
for sure.
that is definitely something I would be really interested in picking your brain on what you got. Okay, cool. Where can people find you?
At sacramentoappraisalblog.com or sac appraiser on Instagram and Twitter.
Sac Appraisal. Okay, so sacramentoappraisalblog.com. Everybody, uh, if you want to get in touch with Ryan, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, man, and very excited to meet you. And any closing thoughts?
No, hey, I just really appreciate it, and thanks for the opportunity. And let's keep getting through this pandemic, and man, just enjoy the people around us. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe that most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy is the best way to grow and preserve your wealth. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And we will see you guys on the next podcast. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day. See ya.